If you ever wanted to have that $1 million, you probably shouldn't. Instead, start with something a bit more reasonable, like your first $100,000. Because $100,000 is all it takes for your life to change and your net worth to skyrocket. So today I'll share 2 reasons why this happens and go over 4 ways to actually get your coveted first 6 figures as quickly as possible. And the first is the inflection point, or the power of compound interest. Investing is the #1 way to build wealth, earning returns every year and compounding and accumulating over time. But there's one thing: you need to reach the critical mass or inflection point first. Anything below the minimum amount, then that chain reaction just kind of simmers out. But once you have enough of a catalyst, a chain reaction starts and an explosion begins. Larger and larger dominoes start falling. $100,000 is that catalyst. Anything less than $100,000, then the power of compound interest just won't have the same explosion. For example, if you want to go from a net worth of $0 to $100,000, if you invest $10,000 per year at an average of 7% interest rates, you'll get to $100,000 in about 8 years. But if you look a bit closer, that $100,000 will be made of 80% savings and 20% interest, which isn't horrible. But if we let that continue, to get to 200,000 it'll take about 5 years, and to 300,000 about 4 years, and to 400,000 it'll take about 3 years. And finally, to 500,000, it'll be a bit over 2 years. And thanks to the power of compound interest and that $100,000 that started the catalyst of growth, you'll be able to reach each additional $100,000 in shorter and shorter amounts of time. And by the time you get to $1 million, which by the way, will take you an additional 8 years for the next 500 grand, 30% of that money will be your principal, or what you saved and invested, while 70% of that money will be from the stock market and its returns. And that last stretch from 900,000 to 1 million only takes about a year, which is about 8 times faster than that initial 100,000. Basically, it takes you 8 years to get you to your initial $100,000. But after, to get to $1 million, it takes 22 years. And 22 years might seem like a long time, but that's only 3 times as long for 10 times the money. If you can get to that first 100,000, the rest becomes a lot easier. And sure, $100,000 isn't enough to never work again, but it can lead to a life-changing amount of money. It's a way to financial peace. If you were to lose your job, it wouldn't be the end of the world and you wouldn't need to frantically find another source of income. And the second reason, reaching $100,000 breaks this mental barrier and cultivates discipline. I remember when I hit my first $100,000 and that moment was everything. And sure, it's just numbers on a screen and there's no pile of cash to lay on and celebrate. But for those seeking wealth, it is everything. One of the first steps you need to achieve wealth is building a mindset and believing that wealth is accessible to you and believing that you are worthy of wealth. Even if you didn't grow up with the same opportunities or environments that promoted money. And without that mental drive or belief that you can become wealthy, then it's pretty much impossible for you to become wealthy. And this is where that $100,000 comes into play. Seeing those 6 figures on your screen under your name breaks down this mental barrier and is a reminder that you are capable of wealth. Even just to get to that 100,000 isn't by accident. It's done with intention and discipline. This discipline means that if you could get here, and that by believing in yourself, then you can make it one day. And this mentality means you're shifting from a saver to an investor. For most people, the journey towards wealth starts with saving. They focus on getting expenses, building an emergency fund, and setting aside money from each paycheck to reach that $100,000. But something changes. They start seeing money as a tool for growth, rather than just something to hoard. And this is the shift from a saver's mindset to an investor's mindset, and its confidence in that explosion in wealth building. So now that you know how important the first $100,000 is, let's get into how to actually get there. But before we go on, if you're enjoying this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It'll help the channel tremendously. Thank you very much for watching. The very first thing that matters with building your wealth is the power of time. If you didn't grow up in the best circumstances or never got the opportunity or luck to be able to start investing in your 20s, start now. Let's say you're 30 years old and start today. Assuming a conservative 7% and you wanted to reach 100,000, you would need to contribute $584 a month. And by the age of 65, you would have $1 million. And importantly, I'm not increasing the $584 at all. So it doesn't consider getting that promotion from work, or maybe you get married and have a dual income. There are a lot of ways to increase your income, so you should be able to reach that 100,000 or even 1 million even faster. And if you started investing at 40 or even 50 years old, it becomes much more difficult because you don't have as much time. Let's say you're at the age of 50 and want $1 million by the time you're 65 in order to retire semi-comfortably. You would need to contribute $3,215 per month. And what this shows you is the power of time. So if you haven't started already, you can either be sad or start now. And the second way is to live below your means strategically. A lot of financial advice tells you to deprive yourself, don't buy this, don't eat that. While the concept and idea is sound and completely minimizing costs is generally the right direction, I think it's the wrong way to go about things. 95% of diets fail because of these harsh rules that we apply to ourselves, and we end up regaining all that weight and more. The more we're told to stay away from fast food, the more we begin to crave and hunger for a quarter pounder. And wealth building is very much the same as health and practicing good habits. But by cutting everything off cold turkey, you put yourself at risk of failing your diet. Instead, it's best to ease into your diet, workout plan, or in this case, a budget, so you can get used to this new lifestyle and see where you can add or even cut. And the perfect way is through the 50-30-20 rule, where 50% of your salary goes to your needs, like your mortgage, your utility bills, or your grocery. 30% goes to your wants, like playing video games or that quarter pounder. And 20% goes to your savings and investing. And you can find ways to cut costs. Switch to a cheaper cell phone plan, live with a roommate, drive an older car, or cook your own meals. It's going to take good old-fashioned hard work. Put your head down, live simple, pack your lunch, and practice delayed gratification. And ease into all of it. But these tiny lifestyle changes make a huge impact on how quickly you can save your first $100,000. And the next might be obvious, but it's to increase your income. While cutting expenses is important, there's only so much that you can actually save. Let's say you brought in $5,000 a month and absolutely saved 100% of your income. The most you can ever save is $5,000 a month. But the only way is to increase the amount of money you make. And there are a few immediate ways to do it. The first is to ask for more money from your job. If you have a full-time job, typically there's an annual review cycle. So take the time to collect all your accomplishments and contributions to the team and company. And if that isn't enough, you can always look for a higher paying job. According to Harvard Business Review, job hoppers secure an average pay raise of 8.5% compared to 5.9% for those who remain in the same role. And if your day job still doesn't pay much, it's a good reason to start a side hustle. With cost of living continuously going up, starting a side gig is becoming more common than ever before. According to studies, about 40% of people have a side hustle. But the great thing here is that you can find something that you actually enjoy, and with skills that you're good at to make it feel less like another job and more of a fun hobby. And everyone has something that they're great at or absolutely enjoy doing. So tap into your creative or technical side. You can make stickers and sell them on Etsy, or make YouTube videos showing off your cooking skills. And if your full-time job isn't something that you enjoy or want to do in life, then this is a great way to follow your dream and actually make money at the same time. And the next is to think in percentages and not numbers. Stop thinking about $200 or $500 a month. Instead, think in percentages. For example, let's say your salary is $80,000 and you take home $5,000 a month after taxes. If you were to invest $500 a month, it might seem like a lot. You could get a new TV or maybe many more quarter pounders with money to spare. Instead, think in percentages, or in this case 10%. And thinking in percentages becomes even more important when your salary increases or you get a raise. Say you get promoted and now make $100,000 and your take-home pay per month is $6,250. And you continue with that 10%, you're now investing $625 a month. Your investments naturally will go up. And as long as you stick to percentages, you don't have to worry about manually making extra investments. Hitting the $100,000 mark is a pivotal moment in building wealth. It's the point where the benefits of compound interest become really clear, and the key to growing your wealth lies in starting early, being consistent, and letting your investments compound over time. Getting to $100,000 requires discipline and effort, but it's more than worth it because it sets the stage for your net worth to skyrocket in the future. But just like $1 million, it's best to think in small, more manageable increments. And it all starts with $10,000. So if 100,000 seems impossible or out of reach, check out the next video to see why $10,000 is just as important when it comes to building wealth.